Good evening. Today at Rondelli Foundation we have a very special guest, Her Excellency the Ambassador of Finland to Georgia, as well as to Armenia and Azerbaijan, Madame Kirsti Narinen, who is a great friend of Georgia. And let me start the interview with congratulating Madame Ambassador, the historic victory in the Olympic Games of Finnish hockey team over the Russian hockey team 2-1. We all celebrated at these important times. We all needed this victory, and congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to our office.
Thank you very much.
Of course, the very first question is related, and all the discussions, all the conversations are related in nowadays to Ukraine. How would you evaluate the situation in Ukraine? Is this a Russia crisis, or this is the Russia-Ukraine crisis?
Yes, and it's also a crisis of the international security, international legal security system. I mean, in every document Russia has signed, in every document we have signed, Georgia has signed, European Union has signed, and every OSCE country has signed, is saying that attacking and making an unprovoked and unjustified physical military attack on another country is not acceptable. It's a shame, and it's something that we should not be watching at the moment.
Despite all the attempts of EU leaders, of the United States President and other leaders, Russian President decided to invade Ukraine by justifying that their mission is to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine. So Ukrainian president responded with the readiness to deter to the aggression, as well as the readiness to sit down to negotiate. In today's address, a few hours ago, President Zelensky again offered the negotiations. Do you think there is still a room for the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? And in particular, the issue of the neutrality could be the solution. The president and the Ukrainian side is talking about the guarantees for the security. Should we expect any kind of solid guarantees coming from the Russian Federation? And could anyone trust them?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting elaboration in the sense that, you know, what are we talking about when we're talking about security? Whose security? But built on what? And defined by whom? And I think that these diplomatic channels always have to be open. I mean, I'm a diplomat, so I have to believe that there always is the way to talk about things. And eventually, after the military crisis is over, regardless of its result, anyways, one has to return to the negotiations table. Of course, the military aggression usually is the way to position yourself for the negotiations, and this is obviously what President Putin is doing. I don't know what kind of theater he was playing with these negotiations and these talks or meetings with President Macron, and talks over the phone with President Biden, and then on the foreign ministers level. Then also Olaf Scholz, Chancellor, was there. What was this show all about? Was it about for domestic purposes? Probably. Say that the West was here, but they didn't offer us anything. But they are actually motivating and forcing and somehow in charge of what is happening. That's probably it, because Putin obviously needs all this for domestic purpose, first and foremost. He doesn't need Ukrainian territory. I mean, Russia has enough of territory, but it needs political prestige, and it needs to be important. It needs to be in the focus, and that is definitely what President Putin and Russia have achieved. On the other hand, I think, if you look at the news, how is this conflict portrayed to the Russian people? There's an evident gap of truth, which of course is not a surprise. That's how they function. I watch RT as an entertainment program. How can you twist the truth? How can you paint a picture white if it's black, or the other way around? So this is how they function. And if you look at the funding of RT or Sputnik, you can already see how state-related they are. So that's their official propaganda channel. And the people don't know. Yet there would be channels through which they would be able to elaborate and find out more. But then not all are that interested in what is happening. People tend to be rather interested in their own sphere of interest. If I look at my region of activities, there was another example of this only recently with the Nagorno-Karabakh war. Azerbaijan wanted to reach a certain military point, and that was the city of Sushi. After that, they said that, okay, now we are ready for ceasefire. What would be this kind of breaking point of Russia wanting it and Ukraine not being able to withstand anymore? This remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Now let's go to sanctions. The sanctions, we see the series of the tranches of sanctions launched by European Union. Yesterday, the number of very important sanctions have been adopted, agreed by the leaders of the European Union, as well as the UK Prime Minister announced about the sanctions, as well as the President of United States, President Biden, has announced new tranche of sanctions yesterday. But Ukrainian leaders, President Zelensky, Foreign Minister Kuleba, are urging their Western allies, Western friends, democratic community to hit harder, personally Putin, his closest circle, as well as the major strategic sector, cutting off Russian Federation from the SWIFT system, putting embargo on the energy sector. There is no unity on this on these issues. Do you think the sanctions which have been already introduced will stop Putin attacking and stopping the aggression in Ukraine? And do you think that in the mid-term and long-term perspective, it will affect really the Russia's economy and Russia's policy, aggressive policy?
Well, first of all, sanctions are a very slow tool. They have always been a very slow tool. They are not something that it's not a weapon as such as the military, in the military concept. On the other hand, I was reading also that the economic circles around Putin are not happy with the situation. They are genuinely concerned. Of course, the West European Union is coordinating very, very intensely and very efficiently also with the United States, but the United States is maybe always going one step ahead because of the decision-making processes. Of course, the scope of interests for United States is a bit shorter than that of the long list of European Union member states. On the other hand, the first set of sanctions was decided upon very, very fast. There's another council meeting today, summit, which European Council, which is deciding on them again. And there will, I think now, the whole Western world is in a state of shock, but also angry in the way that, look, we came to you, we had discussions with you in Moscow, we wanted to talk this over, also not over Ukraine, but with Ukraine, with their support. We had messages, we responded to your letter. So what do you want? What more do you want? That they also feel that, you know, there's a certain limit which nobody can cross, and that where also the national interests, for instance, the European banks, just have to prevail, have to, you know, subside. When this kind of the entire legal system is being so severely damaged and questioned, and of course democracy as such. I mean, the Western world represents democracy, and this is what President Putin is first and foremost attacking. It's the democratic regime, democratic and democracy in Ukraine, which is also the problem. It's the core problem is that he doesn't want to give an example to his own people or anybody that democracy can actually be strong enough to hold the people together and to build unity when he has to do the unity part with force and with domestic suppression.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that success in transformation of our countries in a democratic, true democratic countries, this is the biggest, the real nightmare for Vladimir Putin, and not the weapon systems in our countries and the foreign military forces stationed in our countries.
Well, look at Belarus. I mean, that's a prime example. There were democratically held presidential elections, but there was an urge to flip them over into 1,000 political prisoners in the heart of Europe. I mean, that is unthinkable in a democracy, which also kind of, if you turn it around, if you have this number of political prisoners, it's not a democracy. And in a democracy, you don't have political prisoners. Yeah.
On February 24th, Prime Minister Marin of Finland, of your country, has tweeted condemnating tweet on Russia's aggression, expressing a full support to Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, as well as offering their support, meaningful support to Ukraine. What kind of support could be expected in Ukraine from Finland bilaterally, I mean?
There are two elements to that. I mean, first of all, there's been very, very high-level political support. In Finland, we have this kind of semi-presidential system for foreign policy. It is in our constitution that the foreign policy is decided or regulated by the president together with the government. Our president, of course, Niinistö, has been very active in this crisis during, you know, several weeks and months already. He spoke over the phone with President Zelensky today. So this is what Finland is giving a clear signal to Ukraine that we are there for you and we are there supporting for what you are fighting for. But also money. There was also a decision today which was conveyed to President Zelensky by my president that 50 million euros will be given directly, and then we are supporting also the United Nations humanitarian support. I think there was 10 million for that yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, Finland has been very actively visible in also the international structures. There's the OSCE special representative for Ukraine is a Finn, my colleague Ambassador Mikko Kinnunen, also the head of the EU advisory mission in Ukraine is headed by a Finn. So we also have direct channels of communication, also direct channels of getting information about what is going on in that country. So this will definitely continue. Of course, political support at the moment is a long
term. Could Finland take a role of mediation?
Finland is a European Union member state at the moment. We are kind of we can facilitate if requested, But I don't think that Finland would offer mediation in in this question, because I don't think that we have more to offer in that than the institutions that we support, such as OSCE, the European Union, and, well, whatever body there could be. Because I think that the political solution anyways needs to be multifaceted, and I presume that actually the big European countries would be willing to do that, as they were already in the game as far as the Normandy format was concerned.
I see. Today there was a conversation between President Putin and Chinese colleague Xi Jinping, and the Chinese president has offered has initiated the possibility of the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine.
And so has the Turkish president,
as well as the
Turkish
president. Yeah, you said that the European citizens, European leaders, and world leaders, and democratic leaders have been shocked by the news of the invasion. I believe that it was shocking for the Finland's population, for Finnish citizens, and especially taking in consideration the bitter experience of historic experience of Soviet Union's war with Finland. How seriously is taken the threat for Finland itself, the aggression against Ukraine, and is it affecting the people's approach towards the idea of of Finland joining NATO? I see the polls, and the numbers are increasing. Are you getting closer to the day when you may discuss and decide the NATO membership?
Yes, if you come one sentence on the Winter War in 1939, that was a bit different in the sense that the war had already begun. I mean, Hitler had already attacked Poland then, so the war was in the air, so to say. But this is not the case here. I mean, although we have been talking about troops gathering behind the borders, but that was the same thing last year. So nobody would ever be. I don't think anybody actually was able to predict, except for the American intelligence. But did we believe what the American intelligence was saying, that there will be an attack on Kiev? Because I don't think so. I mean, we were thinking maybe of Donetsk and Luhansk, maybe something on Azov Sea in the vicinity of Crimea. Crimea needs water, and Azov Sea harbors are vital for the trade in eastern Ukraine. So that perhaps, but not of this size or this magnitude. And I think this was also the message of President Zelensky himself to his people, that things will be okay. As for the NATO membership, definitely there has been a shift. There has been a very, very clear shift. And we need to let things calm down a bit, and then if there's a poll which would then shift the people's support overwhelmingly, which has not been the case so far. It has been pretty, balanced, and those who are definitely against, the number of those has been rather big. I mean, substantial, 30% or something. So if that should dramatically change, I think this will be taken up for a more serious debate. We have elections next year, so should this become a theme of the elections, that's possible, because Finland doesn't make decisions hastily. It doesn't mean that we will, next week after the crisis, we will make a poll and then we make the decision, then we are in, or proceeding in. And it's also noteworthy that today, when they have the NATO summit, Finland and Sweden are invited, as far as as well as the European Union. So this also means that in the NATO circles, Finland and Sweden are considered to be members of the club to a point, because both Finland and Sweden can offer their capabilities. and they will offer their capabilities for the common good, also based on already on the European Union regulations on solidarity, although European Union is not a military organization. So we are considered to be as close as one can be without being a member. Of course, it's a political decision, and of course, it's a political decision also in the present NATO member states. So it's not like NATO decides; that they're the member states that decide whether Finland and Sweden would then be accepted in. So, and this is obviously something that can definitely will trigger an extremely heavy information campaign against that by those forces that want to not to have Europe united.
Mm-hmm. And very last question. In my view, President Putin will not give up with demand of Georgia and Ukraine stopping the Euro-Atlantic integration path and aspiration. And we see that the Russian propaganda, information warfare is very actively ongoing, not only in Ukraine, but as well as here in Georgia, and far-right groups. We saw a few days ago the joint letter of 53 organizations and individuals addressing Vladimir Putin to ask in getting the neutrality. What should Georgia do? What should Georgian government do? Just a recommendation.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Georgian government and Georgia have signed the association agreement with the European Union, and they have the free trade agreement and the visa facilitation. So basically, one could think, or one should think, that your kind of approximation to the European Union in that sense is happening. On the other hand, I think during the last year, a bit more than a year, we have heard the news from Georgia that are not in line with this aspiration. On the other hand, I took part in this demonstration on Rustaveli last night, and I think that was kind of a clear demonstration of what the people actually want, and also the percentage-wise, if should there be, or have recent poll that was saying that's a vast majority of people do want to align with the European values and the European integration path. Of course, on the other hand, we know that the Georgian economy is pretty much tied up with Russian economy, and that there are also forces in the society that would rather see Georgia not joining the European structures, because also in this Russian thinking or Russian-minded thinking, it's a zero-sum world, that if you're not with this Russian sphere of interests or influence, voluntarily or by force, then you are against it, which of course is not really the case. It is entirely possible to have good neighborly relations with all your neighbors, just like Finland is having. Of course, our political history is the same, so it's different. So we should not compare ever. We should never compare. But I leave it for the Georgians to decide. I mean, this is a democracy, and in a democracy, it goes according to those lines. But I do clearly understand the concern of many Georgians that are actually favoring the real European integration and Euro-Atlantic integration, which is also based on the values of inclusion and of the rights of the minorities, the rights of the people, and the integrity of the whole society. On the other hand, of course, 20% of Georgia is occupied by this same force, by Russians. So it's kind of to strike the balance is extremely difficult. However, from our angle, it should not be difficult at all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Ambassador.
Thank you.
I hope we will see you next time in our office, and we'll have another opportunity to continue and discuss the developments here in Georgia, in the region, and hopefully by then there will be peace in Ukraine, and the official government and elected government will be in the office.
Thank you
very
very
much.
Thank you for this opportunity.